Hi, I'm Charlie, and this is Stereo Hysteria. Our May artists of the month, the Decibels, are a band from Sacramento, California, comprised since 1996 of Dean Seavers and Joe Patch on guitar and vocals, Brent Seavers on bass and vocals, and Brian Machado on drums. Not to be confused with Winston-Salem's The DBs, the Decibels have been crafting infectious and immediate pop music since their inception, inspired by 60s British invasion and 70s punk and power pop, without being beholden to any one style. Their first two albums, 1997's Create Action and 2001's The Big Sounds of the Decibels, are, in my estimation, modern pop classics. But the band incurred various unexpected setbacks while recording each of them. After 2003, the band was on a prolonged hiatus, spurred on in part by a medical condition involving Dean's vocal cords. But last year, the band sprung back into action, with 2 new albums released in rapid succession and more new material on the way. Stereo Hysteria spoke with Dean and Brent Seavers via a conference call last month, and we'll be hearing that conversation over the next hour. But we'll begin with the song from last year's Big Hits plus 12 More, a collection of covers which have been live favorites throughout the band's career, originally recorded by Australian group The Saints, called Big Hits.
I used to send you postcards from the subway after hours. I quit my job there, now I live with flowers. I roll right out on that, and now there's no turning back. I sold myself to a gentleman of letters. It lets me out once a month to say my prayers. I file my toothball flash and sell myself for cash. I want those big hits on the underground. I want to shake to the psycho sound of big hits on the underground. Everybody needs them. My mind is clean, but my outlook is dirty. I tell myself I just do it 'cause I'm pretty. I'm talking about making it breathe, and now my soul is saved. I want those big hits on the underground. I want to shake to the psycho sound of big hits on the underground. Everybody needs them. I used to send you postcards from the subway after hours. I quit my job there, now I play with flowers. I roll right out on that, and now there's no turning back. I want those big hits on the underground. I want to shake to the psycho sound of big hits on the underground. Everybody needs them.
Dean, Brent, in addition to being bandmates, you're also relatives. Brent is Dean's nephew, or Dean is Brent's uncle, however you want to say it. I would imagine there's some age difference between you. Did you influence each other's musical tastes at all? Is your extended family a particularly musical bunch?
That's a... You go ahead.
No, take it, Brent.
Well, I was going to say, that's a great question. So, yeah, Dean's 11 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, not so big of an age difference, a lot of times rather than seeing us as uncle-nephew, a lot of times it'll be those Seavers brothers. We never bothered really correcting anybody because, especially when you're in a band, it's as long as the Decibels have been, it starts to feel like a band of brothers for sure. But, I started playing guitar at age 12 at a time in the early 90s where guitar music wasn't a thing. So the grunge movement hadn't happened. It was still kind of electronic pop on the radio. And so I was listening to like Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly, basically whatever was playing on the oldies station.
Mm-hmm.
And Dean kind of came along early in my guitar playing and said, hey, you should check out the Jam and the Ramones and the Clash, and started sharing that there's other rock music out there that just opened up a very large world of kind of power pop and early punk.
Although I think I would say that we've got a strange musical connection in terms of your dad. Not that your dad was like a huge musical head, but all my siblings, I'm the youngest of 6, and all my siblings are a lot older than me. Brent's dad is my oldest brother, and he's like 18 years older than me. So that's where I grew up in the 70s with a house full of 60s music. And so Brent's dad liked the Beatles the same way that my siblings did, and the Monkees. And, I grew up on Monkees reruns and so forth. And so Brent, growing up as Craig's son, also had that sort of Beatles exposure and also Monkees exposure as well. So there's like a commonality in, I think, our songwriting sensibilities that stems back from that kind of stuff. So even though it wasn't like a directly shared influence, it kind of was like almost this pyramid, like me growing up around Brent's dad and him being into the Beatles and mid-60s music. And then Brent being Craig's son and him still being into the Beatles and 60s music, there was that sort of parallel influence that we share.
For sure. I mean, I definitely cut my teeth on like Paul Revere and the Raiders, Beatles, Monkees, the Kinks. Definitely early 60s British invasion rock.
Yeah.
Was all around growing up.
Just sort of a shared language in the air.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before there was the Decibels, there was the E-Types, and that's a band whose style seems like a pretty direct predecessor. When did that group start, and how did it eventually morph into the Decibels?
I will try to give you a Cliff Notes version. That band actually started in the 1986. I was a mod kid, and so I had the Jam albums and was obsessed with like the early Who, and had watched Quadrophenia and had a Vespa, and really loved the aesthetic of all that and kind of the energy.
Was there much of a mod subculture was this Sacramento?
Sacramento, I mean, in the same way that there was like a mod subculture in kind of every area that had, it was either a college town or it had a populace of 50,000 people. You had a small group of kids that had seen Quadrophenia, or they had been preppies, but they got turned on to like the specials and English beat and that two-tone stuff. It was kind of like 12 kids in the area, and you could pick up secondhand Vespas really cheap and that kind of thing. So it wasn't anything thriving. I look back on that whole era with a lot of fondness, but it was very ramshackle and probably misfit kids that weren't kind of cool enough to belong to other subcultures. So they sort of found each other, So no, not a really big scene in Sacramento, but it was really influential to me that around the same time, 1984 or so, there was a band in San Francisco called The New Breed, and they were the first mod band that I'd ever seen in person. And it kind of blew me away because it was articulating what I was trying to do in terms of getting a band together in high school and that kind of thing. So it gave me something to shoot for. So the E-Types originally were kind of my version of The New Breed. Same layout, just guitar, bass, drums. Handwriting, just sort of short, fast, 3-minute pop songs. They were kind of 60s influence.
Here are the E-Types with a song from a 1993 album released after the band's breakup called Enraged.
It seemed like a good idea at the time. Now I wonder what I could have thought to be so fine. It took so long for me to see that you were only using me to kill your time and keep me paid. Then you're surprised to find that I'm enraged. All alone. the things you say when I'm not there. And I think it stinks when you think that I should care. It won't take long for me to choose, and it's you, my friend, who will lose. I'll kill your time and keep you caged, and you'll be surprised to find that you're enraged. You're enraged. You're enraged. You're enraged.
So we gigged around and actually put out an EP when we were together, and then an album came out posthumously. Now what had happened was the bass player wasn't really a songwriter, but really good promoter, and he got frustrated with us plateauing where we were plateauing, and so he had all these suggestions that I didn't agree with. I think the final straw was, because we both like bands like the Primitives and the Darling Buds, he wanted to get like a blonde girl lead singer or something like that. But at the time, I was really kind of didn't have the guts to just say, "Hey, Kurt, this isn't working. You need to leave the band." So I broke the band up, and then got the Decibels together with Joe Patch just basically filling in the bass role. Even back with the E-Type's drummer was the original Decibels drummer.
Okay.
And then just called it the Decibels instead of the E-Types, figuring like, oh, people will figure out that we're really the E-Types Mark II. And it was like starting from scratch.
Okay.
So that got going. And then Joe had always sort of articulated that he was okay with playing bass, but he was a really guitar player and really wanted to play guitar. We got together in like 93. In 96, Joe kind of really put his foot down and said, "Hey, I really am tired of playing bass. I want to play guitar. So we need to make it a 4-piece. And then this sort of Brent comes into the picture. We'd see each other at family gatherings and so forth. And so I knew that he was playing guitar and writing his own songs, but because he was so much younger than me at the time, I didn't really hear his stuff. But he had given me a cassette of his demos, and I was really blown away by his songwriting. I thought, man, that's amazing. I would have killed to been able to write that well when I was, 14, 15. When Joe was emphatic about making it a 4-piece and getting another bass player, that was kind of my deal. Was happy to do it. Let's bring Brent in on bass. And so that's where we got to the 4-piece stage. And then shortly after that, the original drummer left. And I had been in a band concurrent to the Decibels called the X-Teens with Brian Machado on drums. So when Kevin, the original drummer, left, Brian stepped in, and that's been the lineup since 1996.
We'll continue on with the title track from the Decibels' 1997 debut album, Create Action.
All the time I wonder why people anesthetize themselves and go through their lives blind. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Everybody seems the same, I know. You'd think they'd have gotten wise and would create action. Whoa, create
even though there have been periods of inactivity in between then and now, the fact that it is still the same four-piece since 1996 is really kind of incredible.
But I think that's just what it is. It has to have all four of those elements for us to be us, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because certainly Brian's drumming gives your power pop a lot of its power. His drumming style makes the band sound what it is, and similarly, when Joe switched to guitar, it seems like a lot of the arrangements of your songs play with the dynamics of like a crunchy 6-string versus a jangly 12-string.
Yeah, on some of that, but we definitely, even on the ones where we have 2 6-strings going, it's a matter of still just trying to figure out how to stay out of each other's way.
Or at least making sure you complement. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with, because we've all played in bands with other people and other groups, and really the Decibels sound is the four of us. So whether it's a song that Dean wrote or Joe wrote or I wrote, it used to be that I would record, all four parts, the drums, the bass, the guitar parts, and then bring it to the band. And I realized you almost don't want to do that, because you want to come in with just some chords and a melody and let everybody fill in where they need to. Mm-hmm. And it's been such a great group to work with, because that Brian Machado is going to channel the ghost of Keith Moon immediately and just bring, like you mentioned, that power, that kind of early mod power to the mix. And, everybody really brings something to the table. It's definitely a joint effort.
So when the band was first starting out, what sort of people were coming to your shows?
We were doing a lot of opening slots, mm-hmm. and at the time, this would have been early 90s, and we didn't really fit in anywhere. As a kid, I was obsessed with the 60s stuff, and then when punk rock hit in the late 70s, it just sort of blew my mind, the energy and everything. And then when what seemed to be first wave power pop to me, being the age I was, which would have been Plimsolls, Romantics, Knack, 2020,
yeah,
those kind of bands, it was exciting to me because it was like, oh wow, punk energy, but kind of sort of 60s just songwriting. And that's at the point where I started playing guitar. And then a little bit later, when the sort of the 60s garage revival hit and things were sounding more pure 1966 kind of thing, mm-hmm. I really, really, really wanted to play like that, and I couldn't. The die had been cast, and I was just kind of, everything sort of came out like a 79 power pop kind of thing. Mm. And so for most of the 80s, I just really tried hard to sound 60s. Everything's kind of been informed by that sort of 1979 power pop thing, whether we wanted that to happen or not. So when we were going in the 90s, we didn't fit in anywhere.
Okay.
So people would sort of go, well, they're kind of retro. So we would play with a rockabilly band, or, well, they wear suits, and there was I think the third wave ska revival was going. So we played with a lot of ska bands. And then there was even times where we get, because of the suit thing, we played with the swing revival was going on a little bit later too. So we played with Big Bad Voodoo Daddy and all that sort of stuff. And it was kind of frustrating at the beginning because we felt like the misfit band. But over time, we started noticing that if we play at a local club, there'd be some rockabilly people there, some garage people there, some just regular sort of suburban people there. So slowly over time, it just sort of got to be just this mix of people that sort of ended up getting what we were doing or liking what we were doing.
Hmm. Most people like a lot of different genres. And so even though we would get maybe booked with various bands, you would always pick up people that dig the sound, that like what you're putting out. So even if they're there for a rockabilly show, they may not even realize they're power pop fans until they hear us, or they are also power pop fans. And so you get a lot of cross marketing that way. And so it's fun because we'll see that now when we get a chance to play. You'll see definitely a mixture of people from different groups that are all kind of coming together for the power pop sound.
Which is funny because we've discovered that power pop is kind of a controversial,
that's very true.
endlessly debated and argued term. So we always think of ourselves as power pop, but a lot of the people that are sort of, steeped and invested in the power pop world say we're not power pop. They just see you have to sound like Badfinger or Dwight Twilley or the Raspberries to be considered power pop, and we're just too rough for that or something. So.
We'll call it the Sacramento power pop sound. And I think that's what people have been saying online is, I don't know, it always sounded like pure power pop to me, but I think that's why. It's what naturally falls out when I write a song.
Yeah, and I think, Brent probably feels the same way. the song is just the song that
Right.
we're working on. So there isn't any sort of thought about we have to do it this way, or we just do it however it comes out. And that's the other thing with having some perspective. Whereas in the 90s, I was maybe a little frustrated that we weren't aligned with the scene because it was really hard to get an audience. But you get a little bit further away from that and you realize that there are bands that they live and die with the scene. And we were spared that because we didn't really fit in with lockstep with anything. So once that scene kind of ran its course, or people got tired of it, or bands changed or just petered out, it didn't really affect us because we weren't part of this built-in thing. So it's allowed us to kind of weather those lulls and everything to where we just still have a good cross-section of people who get what we're doing. And so we've been very fortunate with that in that sense. So.
In your catalog, although there are a couple of like straight-up 3-chord garage rave-ups, you do have a lot of really bold chord progressions and key changes in your songs. I wanted to mention the song My Mind because it's very rare to hear like a song where 2 vocalists are singing entirely different melodies and lyrics simultaneously, and to have it still be successful.
Oh, that was a super fun song to record too. That was
Yeah, I'm glad that you feel it's successful. It was a happy accident, to be honest. So this was written on a nice little Tascam or Fostex 4-track, the tape recorder. And so essentially what I did is I had a chord progression that I liked, and I had a melody. And the melody just came out naturally with the words because basically I think I got dumped probably, but definitely like a not happy time with a girlfriend. And so just sort of wrote this really melancholy tune and then listened to it 2 days later. And I was angry at that point. So the song just sounded too sad, too whiny. And so I muted the track with the whiny kind of, more melodic flowing one and wrote an angrier set of lyrics. And then it just happened, a happy accident, that what I would do is I'd hard pan one vocal to the left and one to the right. And it was back in the day of the stereo that it was easy to pan, left and right. And so depending on my mood, I'd either pan it to the angry side with the distorted guitar and the angry lyrics, or I'd pan it to the melancholy side, and just depending on my mood. And I think that's really what a lot of relationships are like, that it's reflective of. Sometimes you're angry, sad. Sometimes you're melancholy, mad, like it's not one emotion, it's all of it. And so that's really where that song came from. And then ended up being all psychedelic pop, whatever the heck it is. I don't know.
From Big Sounds Again, a remixed edition of their superb 2001 sophomore album, The Big Sounds of the Decibels, which was released on Bandcamp earlier this year. This is My Mind.
Every time I see you, I can't help but wonder why you just never seem simple smile to me. How come your eyes are growing emptier each day? Though it makes me sad, I'm glad it's you I see. Fill my head up with apathy that helps me control every word.
But yeah, it strikes me as a really good example of just a way of keeping things interesting as a songwriter, but, still keeping that pop sensibility, the ear-catching immediate nature of it.
No, I appreciate that. I'm glad people are digging it. I was nervous about it, I'll be honest, when we put it on the record. Didn't know how it would go over, so if people are digging it, that's good. But yeah, it's exactly like Dean was saying, that you let the song be what it needs to be, because it's more of a natural creation than a forced creation.
Right.
And so if that comes out, it's going to be experimental, and you're nervous about it because you send it out in the world and wonder if it'll be received for what you created. But you just run with it and try to stay honest, try to stay true to the music.
And I think with us, too, it's a little bit interesting that all four of us, I mean, I think Brett and I, because we're come from the same basic DNA pool, we have like a shorthand with each other. Mm-hmm. But all four of us are pretty different people. We work within the sensibilities that overlap. Mm-hmm. So that kind of sets boundaries. So even if we do something that's experimental, it's still going to just sound like a Decibels song, if that makes any sense. We're not suddenly going to do like a reggae tune or
Octopus's Garden or Yellow Submarine.
Yeah, or, we're going through a Baroque period now or something like that, because there's two guys who are like, would totally not be into that kind of a thing. So we have to work within the framework where we complement each other and are on the same page and things like that. So even though we might do something that's experimental for us, it's never going to be so way out that somebody who, might like a really straightforward song is not going to suddenly be able to relate to it because it's an odd time signature and, it's got 4 pan flute parts to it or something.
Yeah, it's interesting trying to find ways of keeping like the straight guitar, bass, drum sounding new, and like making interesting arrangements within that. Whether it's something as simple as like doing the reverse guitar solo on Change.
Yeah, and when that was recorded, that was to tape. So we had to do the old style where you actually flip the reels around.
Oh, okay.
There was no dumping it into Pro Tools and then flipping it backwards that way. That was the first time we had kind of a budget to record with. And being sort of Beatle nerds, and knowing that they did that, we were like, wow, we can do that? We talked to the engineer, and once we realized that was possible, it's like, well, let's do that then. This would be a good song to do that on. And so it was fun to do that kind of a deal. I'm thankful. I think we've done backwards guitar since then. Mm-hmm. Actually, on this latest record we have it, but it's not done the old 2-inch reel tape. You have to flip the reels kind of thing and figure out where you're at in the tune.
Here's another track from 1997's Create Action, written and sung by Joe Patch, called Change.
Suddenly I've realized I see everything through you, and looking through your eyes seems to obscure my view. Reality faded away, placated my mind. Now I find I wish you'd be a distant memory.
So there was a bit of a break in between the first two albums, in between Create Action and the Big Sounds of the Decibels. Was the band sort of on hiatus?
Fault.
Your fault?
That was my fault. Yeah, I left the band for a little bit to go on an ecclesiastical journey. Didn't pan out as well as I had hoped, and luckily the Decibels were still waiting for me when I got back. So,
Well, I mean, Joe left too, and it was at a period of time too where the label that we were on here stateside, they were pushing Create Action really big, and it got a lot of traction. But they were overextended. So just as it was starting to make some kind of inroads, they had to pull the plug on the label. So I remember the phone call I got was, "Hey, good news. You guys just cracked the CMJ Hot 100. I'm like, "Awesome." Bad news is I'm shutting the label down. So, and the bad part is we had paid for the recording ourselves on that one and still needed to pay it off. And so at the time, Brent left, and then Joe was at a point in his career where he has always lived a couple hours away in San Francisco. And to where it was just too much of a strain for him to try and do the band at the level we needed to do it at to kind of gig and promote the album and pay off the studio debt. So he dropped out too. So it's funny, I had mentioned earlier that I was in a band with Brian Machado called the X-Teens back in like 94, 95. So we grabbed one of the guitar players from the X-Teens and then a friend of ours on bass, and then just sort of played it out until we had that paid off. And then I think a year later, Brent came back and Joe was more established in his career. And then I think we discovered that we had access in the band fund. So I was like, hey, let's go record again. So I think that's what started it all up to get things going for Big Sounds.
Big Sounds of the Decibels is still my favorite of your albums and one of my favorite power pop albums.
Oh, thank you so much.
You recently reissued the album with a remixed, remastered sound. What was behind going back to the original tapes and giving it a second go?
Well, at the time when we got the okay to record Big Sounds, we were actually signed to a subsidiary of Fast Music that Dave Smalley was from but he had worked with Fast Music, and he was trying to do this sort of mod power pop band called the Sharpshooters, and they gave him his own imprint and allowed him to sign some bands. And so we were signed to that and got a pretty decent budget, which for us, everything that we had done before, we would just gig and put in the band fund and get, $500 up and then go book a session. And that meant that we worked really hard before going into the studio. We would have 3 or 4 practices beforehand where we could play the entire, what we were going to record without vocals, so we wouldn't need scratch vocals and could focus on our playing. And we learned how to work really fast. So we kind of took that approach even with Big Sounds, although we knew that because we had more of a budget, we could do more layers of vocals or, just add some other pieces and parts to it. But things went pretty fast, which was good because between us recording the tracks and then going back in to mix them, Fast Music lost all their funding in the .com crash.
Okay.
And so they had fortunately paid a deposit to the studio, so part of the recording was paid, but there was still an outstanding balance. So it was kind of an orphan project at that point in time. And I had been taking recording classes at the community college and became friends with a guy in there when all this was going on. And then the semester had ended, and it was a few months later, and I actually ran into him when I was walking around downtown at lunch. He said, "Hey, how's that record going?" And I told him what the story was, and he kind of paused for a second and said, "How about I put it out?" I'm like, "What, really?" He says, yeah, I'll pay off the studio, and the only thing I want is I want to be able to mix it. So I'm like, sounds fine to me. So, and it was kind of a collaborative thing. But at the time, his studio was a home studio. I mean, it was in a bedroom, and we were having to dump mixes to cassette and then go out to a car to listen to the reference mix and come back in. So it was a little bit mixing blindly. He did a really good job with it, but he just had a little bit different sensibility to it. He didn't have the same sort of musical or sonic references that we do internally. And so when it came out, it was fine, but it just didn't, I think to us, it kind of missed the mark a little bit. It was a little bit too over-processed than what we wanted. And that was something that had sort of always kind of, not really actively bothered anybody, but there was just the opportunity to grab the original tapes and go back into the original studio where they were recorded and to just remix everything from scratch. And so went back in 2015 and did that just so there would be something that had a little bit more sonic continuity with the other stuff we'd been doing. Took some of the processing off and made it just a little bit more organic and punchy sounding. And so that's where that came about.
Okay.
We've always been a little bit scrappy sounding, and that kind of got glossed over. For a release, that might be a good thing, but I remember one of the few times where we've played out of town, and people who might be power pop fans have come and seen us. They've been kind of surprised that, like, you guys are like more of a rock band than I thought you were going to be. And some of that scrappiness just kind of got lost in the final mix on the original release for Big Sounds, and I think we just kind of wanted it to sound a little bit more organic and just scrappier.
Up next, we'll hear one of my favorite Decibels songs, as remixed for Big Sounds again, called Kiss Me, Carolynne. You've done a lot of tours overseas or played shows in like Japan and Spain. What's the reception like over there, and how do those opportunities sort of present themselves to you?
It was amazing.
I thought we went over really well. Japan was our first overseas excursion. That was a lot of fun. That was a blast. That was to promote the Bart Thurber sessions, which was unreleased early Decibels recordings. So we kicked it over there. I remember saying 2003. Does that seem right?
Yeah, it was 2003. Yeah. Well, Charlie, I mean, with you playing as well, you know how it is where you don't have a true sense really of like if people are into you or not.
Sure, absolutely.
You know, you just kind of throw it out there and hope for the best. And I make it a point if somebody's, even now being in the age I am, if somebody's put out an album that I really, really like, I just try to drop a note and just let them know, man, I really love this record. This is really good, because I know how it feels to feel like, man, I put a lot into this thing, and you just kind of launch it into the abyss and you have no idea. Especially when you're on like labels that aren't your own, you don't know if it's selling or not. You have no clue. You know, we were really used to toiling in obscurity. So when we got contacted, the Japan thing happened originally because there's a DJ over there that's like a John Peel kind of guy named Ken Show.
Okay.
And he picked up on our cover of Windy, which was on the 4-song EP that had come out in '96. And that, unbeknownst to us, had become a club hit, and they put it on a compilation album that was sold through like Japan's version of The Gap, the clothing stores.
Peering out from under the stairway, calling a name that's louder than air. Who's reaching out to capture a moment? Everyone knows it's windy. Who's tripping down the streets of the city, smiling at everybody she sees? Who's bending down to give me a rainbow? Everyone knows it's windy. Windy has stormy eyes, flash at the sound of lies. Windy has wings to fly above the clouds. Who's tripping down the streets of the city, smiling at everybody she sees? Who's bending down and give me a rainbow? Everyone knows it's windy.
So suddenly, like, performance royalty checks started showing up, and we're kind of like, what is this? And then not too long after that, Egan contacted us and wanted to do a best of CD, which I thought was hilarious because it's like, best of what? For all I know, we were just a Sacramento band that had released some stuff that didn't really sell. And there were some licensing problems with one of the labels that was going to make the situation kind of impassable. And so that's when I said, well, we've got all these early recordings that have never been released. Would you be interested in those? And then that's when he said, yeah, that'd be great. So that's where the Bart Thurber Sessions thing came from. Originally, it was supposed to be just a compilation of other recordings that had been previously released. So that was kind of an eye-opener when we went over there, and went over really well. We just had no idea. I think all of us were kind of like, how did you get this record? I mean, I remember when we played in Osaka, some teenager walked up with our self-released E-Types EP. That we only did 1,000 of them and put them out ourselves. And I was kind of like, how did you get this?
That was great. That was a lot of fun. And that, for us, kind of felt like a good closure. That was literally 2 or 3 days when we got back from Japan before I was getting married. So it was kind of, okay, let's play this big thing and then kind of close.
So in between Big Sounds and Seen Not Heard, there was this big gap of time. I read that there was a health problem that you had, Dean.
There was a lot to it, and that was definitely a part of it, but there's just a lot of life changes too.
Sure.
We were pretty burnout and it's nothing new. I mean, you've done records and been on labels, and you have high hopes for getting some kind of traction, not necessarily, moving up the ladder of success, but just for things to be viable. And it was a real struggle with both Create Action and with Big Sounds. And it got harder to just kind of press on. And we're all at points where careers were starting to creep in, where you needed the better paying day job, and people were getting married and starting families, and it just got harder to do. And there was some burnout that had sort of set in. And then I did have that issue, and I still have it. It's just kind of more in remission, to where I couldn't sing for quite a few years. Brent moved away. He went back to school and lived a couple of states away. So it wasn't strictly because of my voice issues, but that was one of the things for sure. Then there was the opportunity to do a reunion in 2013. It was just so much fun that we all kind of decided, hey, if we have stuff to work on, let's do some more work.
When we had our 2013 reunion, we got to play with Paul Collins, The Beat, and it was just kind of going to be a one show. That was it. We had pretty much been broken up at that point. We decided we're not going to ever play again, but you can't turn down Paul Collins. That's the opportunity to be able to see him, the opportunity to be able to play.
Sure. Yeah.
So we said yes to that. So on my way home, I think, okay, we played a great show. I'm going back 2 states away. I'm driving back with the family. I get a call from Dean, and he says, hey, so kind of funny thing. We got contacted from a guy in Spain who has a festival out there. He thought we were broken up, and he saw that we have some activity playing this last show. And would you be interested in playing in Spain? Yes, I would. So we played the Purple Weekend Festival and did that, and that was a lot of fun.
For me personally, without trying to sound too melodramatic. I was really nervous about the 2013 stuff just because I can't sing the way that I used to because of all the surgeries on my vocal cords. And so I'm a little bit self-conscious about my voice, and is, enough voice going to show up for the show, or am I going to be struggling, or that kind of a thing. And to do it anyways and still have fun, and to get such a warm reception was really nice. And then to kind of have the same kind of reception over in Spain was just kind of an incredible thing that kind of, at least me personally, gave me some confidence to like, yeah, maybe we should try this and just see what we can do, working around with my limitations vocally and stuff. So it worked out really well from the standpoint of just enjoying it and doing it for enjoyment, and obviously wanting to put things out and to be heard, but to just have no really other end goal than to just really enjoy the work,
And you've been together pretty much ever since then? Since 2013?
Well, we had to wait for Brent to move back.
Okay.
So he did the Iron Man thing, and he would actually drive 12 hours to practice for the 2013 shows, which still blows my mind that he did that.
Oh, it's okay. Nevada is so beautiful to drive through.
What year did you move back, Brent? Was it 2015 or 16?
It was 15. So for about 2 years, I was doing the twice a month, would go to Decibels practice. And then it was one of those things that, like Dean said, we enjoyed it so much. We enjoyed playing. And I realized that's something that I want in my life. I don't want it out anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we ended up selling our house and buying one out here and just kind of moved everything. And I would just load up the car with the band stuff, and then I would, move a dresser or a mattress or whatever a little at a time. So it's like a very long 2-year move. But 2015 is when I officially moved out here, and we talked about potentially maybe doing some recordings, because one of the things I was doing out there, like Dean mentioned, was going to school, and I got a degree in digital media, which covers audio engineering.
Okay.
And so I kind of amassed a small arsenal of microphones and recording equipment, and being like Dean and the rest of the Decibels, the total audiophiles, but also just loving that vintage sound, that wanting to capture the early 60s sounds. So I kind of was welcome to the challenge. I wanted to give it a try. And that's really where Big Hits came around. We had talked about just letting it be a trial run. If it worked, then maybe we would share it with the world, or just keep it for our own thing, because who would want, an album of covers? But we thought, let's give it a try. That way I can test my skills. We can test the water, see if we work again as a recording band. And I think it came off pretty well. Yeah. I actually enjoyed the record.
Here's a highlight from last year's Big Hits plus 12 more. A song originally by The New Breed, the San Francisco mod band that Dean mentioned earlier, called Ship Went Down.
Sailing out to sea, again from the town. A ship on the water, down the border. Sailors on the brink of tearing it down. And when the ship went down, there was no one else around. When the ship went down, when the ship went down, when the ship went down, without a trace, without a trace. Standing on the deck of that legendary bay, the captain was amazed. The ship went out that day. People running around, you couldn't hear a thing. They just stood and watched the ship sink. When the ship went down, when the ship went down, when the ship went down, without a trace, without a trace. Was amazed. The ship went out that day. People running around, you couldn't hear a thing. They just stood and watched the ship sink. When the ship went down, when the ship went down, 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 down. When the ship went down, without a trace, without a trace.
we'd always have our live sets with covers, and they never got recorded. And so originally we thought, well, rather than working on original things and getting to the end of it and going, oh man, I don't know, we got to redo all that. That just seemed a little disheartening. But if we just recorded covers for posterity's sake of songs we used to play live here and there, so that's how that list kind of got amassed. Okay. It was just tunes that we all had fond memories of. And a lot of times, we wouldn't keep anything in the set really long. I mean, we might play something 4 or 5 times, and then there was other neat songs to try to bust out and cover and things like that. So it was just remembering what our favorites were that we thought worked the best, and that's what we would just sort of work on to do the test recordings with. And then we were done. We were pretty happy with it, but it was never intended to be a record. It wasn't. We thought, well, okay, when we do the real record, maybe we'll just throw it in as a download card as like a bonus. And then when Richie Apple from Screaming Apple heard it, and we had said, this is just us playing in the studio with covers, and maybe it's a bonus thing. He said, no, we'll do 2 different records. You'll do a covers album and originals album. So it was really Richie that drove it being a standalone release.
Were you still all writing songs in between 2001 and 2018, or were the songs on Seen Not Heard written in a more compact amount of time?
Brent has constantly written because it's a craft with him, whereas I had kind of stopped writing but had a pretty big backlog of tunes.
Mm.
Yeah, I always play guitar every day and will get song ideas stuck in my head. I'm trying to think of the 4 songs. I can think of Hey Emily, Alone with My Guitar, I Need to Tell Her, and what's the 4th one that was on the album? Dean, do you remember?
Thinking About You.
Thinking About You. All of those came from even big sounds. They were idea songs that we had even kind of worked on a little bit and then polished up for Seen Not Heard. But when you write a good song, you want to share it. You want people to hear your stuff. But yeah, Dean and I still write songs today. I mean, ones that hopefully if we put out another album, people will get to hear.
From last year's Seen Not Heard, here's a track called I Need to Tell Her.
I fell in love now, but she won't want me anyway. I'd like to tell her, but I can't find the words to say. I had a while, and still I didn't say a thing. I don't fit in at any of her social flings. In the morning, I feel so lonely I could die. I need to tell her, but I can't look her in the eye. I feel so weak, and I just stumble for a while. I need to speak, I can't return a simple smile. If I hadn't been so scared, maybe everything would work out fine. But still, my heart had simply flown away. Is it much too late to make her mine? I should have noticed that I was running out of time. The day was ending, and still I never told you I'm in love with you. If I could only find the words, then would you care, or just pretend you never heard? Tell me if you want me now, or do you ever think of me? I spend my sleepless nights remembering. Tell me, do you see just what I see? Silence and watch the pictures in my head fade completely. I think it's time to go to bed. I only dream that I can make this sorrow end. I want to scream
In 2018, you released the covers album, the new album. You put out a limited edition Christmas EP, and then recently put out the remastered Big Sounds. It seems like you're making up for lost time.
Yeah,
That's
I think.
the goal.
Yeah, and I think for other than Brent, the other three of us were in our 50s, and you kind of get that realization that like the window of opportunity isn't indefinite, and so when you can take advantage of things, you should take advantage of things.
Right.
So I mean, we're actually playing out some. We're going to go up to the Pacific Northwest the end of May.
Okay.
And then work on some new songs to get ready to record in June, and then go down to LA, Southern California, at the end of July, and then probably resume recording in August. And hopefully we'll have either like a long EP or a mini album this year. And then if everything goes well, hopefully we'll start working on the next full length next year.
And that's all the time we have for this week's episode. I'd like to thank Dean and Brent for agreeing to speak with me for the show. You can listen to and download the band's back catalog at their Bandcamp page, thedecibels.bandcamp.com, and you can also follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/thedecibelsband. Be sure to tune in again next week, when we'll be hearing a series of songs about people named Emily. This is Charlie, signing off.